I just started the broadcast.
It's just, I know. It's that I'm back at my parents' house, so it's like,
Jeez.
Do you need to take care of that?
no, it's not for me. It's just there's phones everywhere.
Okay. If a phone rings, just everybody stop talking for like a second, and that way it'll be easy to cut it out. We are live.
This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story, once a week. I'm Anais.
I'm Maya.
I'm Remy.
And I'm Gerald. And before we get started, I just want to let you know that if during the discussion we get a little bit excited and carried away, our language may wander into PG territory. But we do endeavour to keep things G-rated if we can. If you're of a delicate disposition or you have children listening, please check the show notes on the website and in the description on your podcast host.
Thank you very much, Gerald. And also, if you would like to listen to this podcast and all of our other podcasts in the future, make sure you go to literaryroadhouse.com and go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our wonderful episodes.
Okay, and before I summarize this week's story, if you haven't read it, go read it. Pause the podcast, then come back. So this week we read Monstress. In the story, the narrator, Reva Gogo, tells a part of her past in the late 60s and early 70s. At the time, she was dating an amateur monster movie director who went by Checkers Rosario in Manila, their home city. After producing several monster movie flops in the Philippines, all of which starred Reva as the creature, Checkers' producer fired him. Years later, in 1970, an amateur American director and producer who calls himself Gaz Gazman arrives in Manila to buy the rights to Checkers' monster movie footage to include in his sci-fi monster movie. Checkers and Reva go to Hollywood, where Gazman works out of his mother's basement in Pasadena. Gazman's actress quits, and Reva steps in, playing for the first time the sexy heroine she always longed to be. After a week, the couple is meant to return to Manila, but Gazman asks Reva to stay to reshoot a few more scenes. Checkers leaves, and Reva never leaves Hollywood again, going on to star in more B-rate monster movies, which she is fond and proud of despite knowing their flaws.
Okay, so let's start top level. How's everybody feel about this story?
I liked this story.
Me too.
I'm torn by it. Slightly
Um,
confused.
yeah, I'm a little meh. So,
I find that the gender breakdown on the meh is interesting.
Oh,
So let's talk about what we liked about it. I liked that it didn't take itself too seriously, and I liked that there were hints of there were some layers. There were some layers in there that I enjoyed picking it out, and I liked the voice. I liked the voice quite a bit. There were some things I found confusing about it, but in general, I liked the voice. So it was a very simple and very honest voice that I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah,
nice.
I think that's what I most enjoyed about it. I loved the subject matter. It's very unusual to have a story about making very, very B or C rated movies. And yeah, I like the some of the layers and some of the themes behind it, and I think it was written in a very natural style, a very sort of easy to read style, and you know it's a style we sometimes don't get on here. Sometimes we have a sort of the writing style is very deep and very you have to sort of almost immerse yourself in it, but this was you can sort of skip along with the story, so I liked it for that.
Remy, I see you
Yeah,
nodding your head over there.
I was nodding to Gerald's description of skipping along with the story. I like that metaphor. Um, all right, yeah, but before I give my opinion, I just wanted to point out, Gerald, I didn't want to interrupt the announcements, but sometimes we venture even beyond PG territory. Just putting it out there.
Thank you.
But one thing about the story that I really liked was the humor of it. I think it was genuinely funny, and I think like the stories we read in the past, like some of them had a few humorous moments interspersed, but this one I think made me chuckle quite a bit throughout. With it, it was sort of it wasn't parodying, but it was showing a side of the movie industry that we don't see. And usually people are used to just the A-listers and the big names and things like that, but there's this whole other vast underworld beneath it of the people who don't get to that level. So I think it was very enlightening from that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I know we're in the like phase, but I feel like I need to respond to what I just heard.
I know you can respond after you give us
Yeah.
your like. Give us the like. You could find something positive.
I mean, okay, I didn't hate it. Like, it's not. This is where I'm gonna do my like worst thing ever, the competently written. No, but like it does. It skips along. It flows easily. I liked all the characters, and I did like that. I mean, you could have done the story with any industry or any kind of like plot device to get you from point A to point B, and the fact that it was monster movies, right? It didn't. There was no reason why it had to be monster movies, and the fact that it was monster movies was fun. It was a lot of fun to like visualize all of that. Unless there is a reason it had to be monster movies, then please educate me. So I liked all of that. It kept it sort of lighthearted, but I didn't really have that many laugh out moments. I think I caught myself like kind of grinning, like just that was amusing mildly. But what was it that Rami just said that I wanted to respond to? Oh, that it showed a side of Hollywood we've never seen. But I felt like I have seen this side of Hollywood, and it's kind of like these are the tropes that you have to hit when you're doing this side of Hollywood. Where the guy's working out of like a tiny, tiny little apartment, and it's his mom's basement, and the actors work for free, and they just disappear, and everybody has fake names, right? Maybe I've read stuff like this, but
you know what? I gotta respond on that because I gotta stick up for Remy.
It's not me. It's just opinions.
I'm like you, Anais. I didn't have very many laugh out loud moments except for the Roman Polanski reference that just kind of made me snicker. But I do feel like this was a very specific side of Hollywood. Like this is the end of an era for a genre. These C-movie horror flicks were really big in the 60s, and there were all these movie makers that weren't great but loved their art and were able to make a living off of it. And there are still B horror movies, but not like there used to be. The threshold to entry is much higher. And so I felt like, for me, I didn't feel like this story was a happy one. It actually felt a little bit like an obituary. And it made me very sad, for this art and for their relationship. And I think, when we talk about could this have been any other industry, I don't know. There was that line towards the end that said, "There you are, gods whispered to me, the night of the premiere, obliterating yourselves out of existence." And I look at the movie industry and I kind of think that's what's happening. And so, yeah, I feel like there's meaning there, but it's not really well attained. And so I, like you, am like competently written, but could have done better.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, and sort of building on that, as you said, that I realized the fact that she's, what's reminding her of this is she's rewatching the movies being laughed at by students who are like film majors, I guess, who are like watching this. It kind of plays into what you just said about it being sort of the end of an era. You're looking at it like an artifact.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there was a time when the Rocky Horror Picture Show was just a movie you went and saw, not something that was an experience that was really more about the people in the seat next to you. Yeah, I found it very interesting, very, very interesting. And I also felt so enormously sad for their relationship. It was so foreshadowed. And it was just like you gave up this fairly nice guy, and he, there was like this whole underpinning of she always played his monsters. She always played his monsters, and then there's this new guy, and he lets her play the femme fatale or the beautiful woman. But that whole end when he's heckling her for playing a non-monster, I found that whole scene, that was probably my favorite scene of the entire story, and it was heartbreaking for me.
You're very sensitive, blimey.
What? It was sad.
It
It was so sad because he never saw that she wanted to be the girl running through the woods in the white nightgown. He only
Because
saw
he,
her as a monster. And then she doesn't see the beauty of his monsters until way after the fact.
don't you think that he was keeping her in his place? He was the director, he was the movie maker. She was just someone who happened to be hanging around and happened to be willing to play his monsters
I
for him.
think he loved his monsters. And so she played the most important role to him.
So because he was prepared to sell them out for a couple of grand.
Exactly.
He
But
loved
why
his
do you think he
monsters
sold
more
them
than
out? Why do you think he sold the monsters?
Because he didn't care about them. It was just he'd not succeeded in making famous movies, and he'd fallen out of love with movies, so he'd
Wow.
No. Disagree.
Total disagree.
No.
Anais, take it away.
No. He loved those monsters, and I think he saw this opportunity in Hollywood. I mean, he's not an idiot. They're working out of someone's basement, but this is his last chance to get it out there, to give it a wider audience. He's promoting his monsters. He's getting to Hollywood. That dream never faded for him. And after he goes back to Manila and they go their separate ways, he's like, oh yeah, well, Coco Loco Studios has totally taken me back. He's like lying through his teeth. Nobody has, but he's never letting that dream go.
Yeah, and plus there was somebody else who loved his monsters as much as he did. I think his love for the monsters really showed towards the end of the story when she is watching the monsters on the screen, and up until then she's always just been annoyed by them. She's not really, she considered them grotesque, embarrassing to play. And she's sitting there looking at these monsters, and she's recognizing the love and delicacy of them and the beauty of them. That they're not these fast-paced things rushing through the screen, that there was something languid and almost sensual about his monsters. And so I think that really hints at Checker's love for his monsters. And she never recognized that when she was with him. She just saw that she was playing ugly creatures, and she never saw that she was playing the creatures that he loved the most. So sad.
Although I'm trying to find the section. There's a section where she's describing them again, like decades after the fact. And they don't seem scary anymore to her. Like they no longer seem like, they almost seem really lame, but in an endearing way, in like a heart.
Here it is.
Yeah, we're trying to find that section where she describes them again, and they look completely different.
Yeah, she says she was talking about the Gaz's film and how it doesn't really mesh well with Checker's footage, and she says Checker's footage was rougher than I remember. Bright Technicolor pictures alternated with the yellowish grainy ones, and Checker's monsters moved in a dreamy slow motion. The squid mother's tentacles flowed around her like the tails of kites. The bat-winged pygmy queen glided through the air like a leaf on the wind. Werewolf girl looked almost lovely as she bayed at the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was lovely.
It was, and it changes the monsters completely.
And it made me not hate the story.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you have that change, you have that character arc, but yeah. Anyway, I'll let someone else know.
You talk about how Chex loved his monsters, but I think that one of the problems in the relationship is that he loved the monsters more than he loved her, the girl, Riva. And I think, throughout the story, we see various examples of him kind of putting his goals ahead of her. So I think, she finally does it, but she resents it. And I think, that could be said to be a trope when you have this classic dilemma between, like, okay, career first or love and relationship first. In this case, both of them decided to pursue their career.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Gerald?
Yeah, I was just looking back to see what on earth you're all going on about, because it's I just got a completely different perspective on him and his attitude to his films, and he didn't even try that hard to sort of get her back or to stop her staying or something. It seems like he'd given up on her Like I
Well,
think
he was pretty sad in the departure. Like,
Yeah.
she illustrated him as if he was trying to hold on to her, like his oxygen and things like that.
But you know what? When she slapped him, I think that did irreparable damage because until then, I think it's one of these relationships where we've talked about before where you're not really in love with the person, you're in love with your concept of the person. Like, I'm not sure he was really in love with her. I think he was in love with what he saw in her and what she brought out in his movies and what she brought out in his monsters. But the actual day-to-day her didn't really exist. Like, he didn't even recognize how important it was to her that she plays something that wasn't a monster. And when he sees her outside of this box that he's put her in, he's very upset by it to the point of just totally heckling her, interrupting the filming, making a big scene. And so I think that I feel like he loved his movies and he loved her, but not the real her, just the her that he saw, that he wanted to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I'd agree with that because I don't think he was that sad when he was leaving at the airport. I think it's right at the point where he realizes, because I think for him it was important that they're a cinematic couple that is into the horror, the grime, and the monsters, and sniffs at the overacting, melodramatic. Oh, this phone. Um, yeah, that they're a
Start that
couple.
thought over.
Yeah, where did it cut off?
No, just start the whole thought
Okay.
over
Yeah,
because
so
it'll be
I
hell
think
for editing.
yeah. I think it was important to him that they're a cinematic couple that's into horror and monster movies and sniffs at that overacting, lovey-dovey, over-the-top, sweep you off your feet kind of moment. And when he sees that she's really enjoying it, to him it just sort of shatters the image he had of them.
As you said that, it also, we have to recognize that those lovey-dovey movies from Hollywood are what was the downfall of him. And so when she goes in that direction and plays the leading lady, that is another slap to him on a subconscious level. And yeah, I think he is very hurt by it and he acts out in a really immature way. But I think that there's probably a bunch of where that's coming from is his hurt that she's playing this role rather than just supporting him.
Yeah, because there's that bit near the start where they're walking past the cinema and there's a Doris Day movie and he's throwing stones at the poster. But it's like I don't know, maybe he's immature or something because he can't understand that it's a different market, it's a different type of film. So that sort of movie wouldn't have put him out of business or wouldn't have stopped him making the movies he wanted to. I think he'd I don't know. I just get the feeling he's given up. It's not been successful, and he's just sitting around doing nothing.
But they did change his ability to make those movies. The reason why he lost his job is because what was becoming popular was no longer his monster movies. His monster movies had been super popular. Then all of a sudden they were importing these Hollywood films, and people didn't want to see the monsters anymore.
I don't think he was ever super popular.
No.
But I think before
there was a mention of a packed movie theater.
I think there was a time before the imports came in where it was like this is the only thing. Like like
Bollywood.
Like in an environment where there was no competition, yeah, he thrived as like the only movie producer. But as soon as there was the slightest competition, I think it also showed because she also has that the Technicolor versus the yellow and grainy. Is there any question which is the yellow and grainy?
No.
Yeah, so like it shows he really wasn't that up to snuff anyway. Like I think he was, really
the entire industry in Manila was raised up a level when the imports came in, and he couldn't go with the flow.
Yeah, he didn't adapt.
Yeah, because after he lost his job as director, she went to work as a dental receptionist, and he just hung around the apartment doing nothing and sulking. So, he just gave up at that point. That's my reading anyway.
I think in terms of their relationship, a big contrast and one of the sources of their problems, I feel that he saw her as less than who she was, and she saw him as more than what he
Mm-hmm.
was. Um,
Yeah.
So
and
insightful.
thank you. And Gerald, in terms of your comment regarding him not really caring about the monsters, I think he kind of when he found that he wasn't successful any longer or was failing, he feigned resentment, right? From and she said like, for a long time he resented Hollywood just to say, oh, they're not important anyway, or they're, just fake or whatever, and just making excuses for why, he's no longer in the business. But then, and I think I remember something I learned in a political science class, which is the power of American soft power. Okay, so this mythical status of Hollywood and how people can be enamored by it, even though, everything around him could cause any normal person to be suspicious. Like, we're going to someone's mother's basement's house and all the shoddy equipment and stuff. He seemed to just have a veil or like rose tinted glasses, and he was just completely awed by everything he saw. And in one of the classes when we were talking about this, he said one of the instructors told us, if you want to end any revolution around the world or protests, just take a plane or helicopter over them and drop American visas, because from the outside they don't like it, but then when they have an opportunity to actually partake or be a part of it, then it completely changes their perspective.
Very good.
That's interesting. That's funny. So here's my problem with the story. My biggest problem with the story is there were several places where I actually got confused, where I had to reread a paragraph, or I felt myself hiccuping in the language. But more importantly, while I could see all these little themes, I had a hard time picking out one, like an overreaching theme that goes from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. I had a hard time figuring out why read this story. What is the story about? So I asked you guys that like the story especially, what is the story about at its core?
I think for me it's about well, I don't know what it's about, but I pick up a theme of sort of immigration, strangers, moving to different countries, being outsiders, that sort of thing. So by going to Hollywood from Manila, they're in a totally different world, a totally different environment, doing the sort of things they used to do. But it seems that he couldn't. He felt uncomfortable in that environment, whereas she began to feel more and more comfortable in the environment, and she made more films, and so she adapted and was still living there at the end of the story. So she adapted to that situation better than he did. So they'd taken this Gaz guy had taken them from Manila, and I'm sure he could have found reasons and ways to stay in Hollywood, but he was happy to go home and leave her there.
Remy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's because of each of their desire or ability to adapt, but to the opportunities presented to them. Because I think had Gaz said, I need you to help me with the production, he would have stayed as well, but he just wasn't needed, so he went back.
I don't know though. I didn't even question that until Gerald started saying, that he leaves. Yeah, why didn't he try to insert himself in the movie and stay? He could invent a reason why he must stay. It could be as simple as this is my girlfriend, or it could be more involved like, oh, but I can do this editing, or I can help you with this and that. Why does he leave?
I think he leaves because his like world concept has been shattered, not even so much by the movie, but by her. When she plays the non-monster and she tells him to shut up so that they can keep filming, and she smacks him in the face, and I think that was so painful that that he didn't want to stay anymore. Like, I think that up until that point, Hollywood was like rosy and opportunity and excellent movies, and then when that happened, he was just really hurt
Perhaps,
and too weak to really stand up to it.
yeah, I mean, he did leave that night and she didn't even know where he went. But I think it might be more than just her rejection of the way that he wants to do movies, but seeing inevitably there's no
I
way.
don't think it's her rejection of the way he wants to do movies. I think he felt it was her rejection of him.
Right, yeah. But what I'm saying, more than that, it's also maybe that's when he realizes I'm alone and trying to get monster movies done the way I want them done. I'm like he gives up at that point. Like there's no way I'm going to win this battle against the way that the movie industry is going, because even this sci-fi monster movie has the lovey-dovey scene with the horrible dialogue at the end.
And I think that he does something a lot of people do, but especially men's, like when we're talking about stereotypes, of identifying your own personal identity and your own personal self-worth with what you do. So they've been together since she was 16 years old, and he has always done these movies. And when they dated, he would talk about how someday he was going to do these movies and she would be in them with him. Like, this was how he saw himself. He was a monster artist.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not so much just, oh, well, you know, he couldn't adapt to new movies. Oh, well, you know, she's going to play the lead. It was very much at his core a rejection of who he is as self. And it's the only way that really explains his super overreacting, because that went way beyond just your movies aren't the kind that are made anymore, go make something else. That was, your movies aren't the only kind made anymore, and that's all you are, kind of thing.
And there's quite an interesting point when just before she slaps him, when they're filming the scene, and Checkers is laughing, and the narrator says, "What's wrong with you?" And he says, "What's with me? Do you know what you look like up there? All that corny talk, all that overacting the American is making you do." So I think he saw that as a threat to him, his filmmaking, his relationship with his girlfriend.
Even before that, that scene when she's climbing out of that canyon and he's walking towards her and she says, "Get out of the shot. You're in the way," or whatever, "Get out of the shot." I winced when I read that. I felt myself like, oh, you know, it was a little stinging. And from his point of view, I can see how this was a foreshadowing of what was going to end up happening.
Yeah, I suppose he's trying to, you know, he's feeling left out. He's feeling sad, and he just wants things to go back to how they were, with her working, him sitting around the apartment, with her. Here we go. It's Gerald's theme coming in again.
I don't think he wanted that. I think he wanted it to go back to the way it was when he was making the movies and she was his monster.
Yeah, but that ain't going to happen, is it?
No, but that doesn't change the fact that that's what he wants. Like, that's where his pain is coming from.
Well, I want a lot of things.
We all can't be totally realistic. Some men are very emotionally constipated.
Really?
While we're on the topic of foreshadowing, I was, and this is why I brought up the whole rating thing. I was suspecting, and I was relieved when it didn't, but I thought it would take a turn for the worst.
You thought he was going to die?
No, I thought that Riva was going to be recruited by Gaz, and it was going to end up being an X-rated flick. Really, no, I mean, it was like in the shady basement, and
it was in Pasadena.
Yeah, and it started out with like some kissing. Then he told the guy Checkers to leave. So I thought maybe he'd like slowly lead into that and would exploit this woman. But I was happy that it didn't turn into that.
That's really funny. That didn't even cross my mind, but totally, I could totally see it, because like, what, Pasadena, isn't that like the porn capital of the world or something. Well, for a while,
Remy's
I
such a
thought something
softie,
bad
isn't
was
he?
going to happen. I thought maybe Gaz was like going to have an affair with her, or like
And
somebody was
his
going to
name
die
is
for a
so
while.
slimy.
It really is a very slimy name.
Yes, because
Hey, baby, I'm going to make you a star.
Yeah, I'm like Maya. I thought maybe they were gonna have like some sort of affair, but I was kind of relieved that didn't happen either. But now that I know Remy's horror alternative ending, I'm even more relieved.
I kind of wish it had.
Yeah.
Like some. Oh man. Okay, Booma Shakalaka. So, did you have any thoughts in particular about the story that really stood out for you as you were reading it? Anything that like made this story just really click for you or not click for you?
Remy nodded.
yeah, I think the love story within the story, and I think even through some snippets or extracts of their interactions, I feel like it was like a microcosm or a perfect illustration of their relationship. Like one I noticed was when they were landing. Um, Checkers was asleep, and then he hit his head on Riva's chin, and he said, "We're here, breathing heavily and excited, and we finally arrived." And she rubbed the back of his neck to calm him, although her lip was bleeding. And that was one instance where, okay, he's pursuing his dreams at her expense, or she's the one sacrificing. And then finally, at the end, the tables turned.
Yeah, there was something really delicate and loving about the way that she kind of put up with him. Like there was a bit of humoring him
And
going on.
her saying she would be asleep on the floor until morning while he was editing. Like I felt genuinely sorry for this girl. She wanted to be swept off her feet and have this knight in shining armor, but he wasn't that person.
Like I said at the beginning.
He was the monster king.
Yeah.
For me, like Remy, I enjoyed their relationship together. I actually felt like their relationship had a lot of ambiguity and gray areas in it that I enjoy when I read about people in relationships, because people in relationships aren't totally happy and everything isn't completely functional. And I liked that they had their problems, but she obviously loved him. And those small, delicate moments were just, they were beautiful punctuation. I almost forgot about those. I also feel like there's a whole layer of the story that I'm not getting. Like when I read the story the first time, I felt like there was underlying themes that I just wasn't quite getting. And talking to you guys, I still feel that way. I feel like there's something I'm missing in the story, and I'm not sure if it's because I see the potential on the page or if it's because I'm getting the sense that there's something there that I'm just not picking up on. You know what I mean? I can't tell if it's me or if it's a story.
Yeah, I have that sense as well. Like there's something that I'm missing that I'm not seeing. And also I don't know why I'm not as moved by the relationship one way or the other. Like it was fine, it felt real, those moments were sweet, but I wouldn't say I was like rooting for them or like, oh, get back together or anything. Like when it ended, I'm like, yeah, that's a way that relationships end sometimes, and that's very normal. Like I wasn't.
You know what? Being touched by them doesn't mean I was rooting for them.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
I
I
enjoyed their delicate moments, and I saw that they really loved each other, and I saw their dysfunction, and it would have been nice if they would have overcome it, but it would have been not realistic. And when they broke up, it seemed like obvious that they needed to, but it was still a little sad because there was that genuine caring there. I think that's what I mean by saying this relationship was very gray. There was a lot between them that I don't frequently see in stories where the relationship is all bad or the relationship is all good or mostly good. I feel like their relationship was really balanced in its good and bad.
Yeah, I think all of the relationship was from her to him. He gave very little back to her. and so given the opportunity in Hollywood, she took it with open arms, and she embraced that opportunity, and she wasn't. I think she knew what was going to happen, but she wasn't that sad about him
Yeah, because
going.
she didn't want to go. She didn't want to stay. Like, she felt like this was not going to be a good thing. I think we see something in here. I think you just made me realize one of the things that I'm missing. I see something in here between them that I don't normally see, and it's this: when you have two people that give to each other, and one person gives to the other what the other person needs. The other person, it may be what they want to give, but it's also what the other person needs. While the other person is giving, but it's not what the other person needs, and so it's not recognized. I do think he was giving to her, but it wasn't what she needed. And so she was left feeling like she was doing all the giving. And it left the relationship really unbalanced. I think that's really common in relationships. It's the whole, what do you mean you're unhappy? I give to you all day. I go to work. I give you flowers. And she's like, I just want you to spend time with me. It's kind of this imbalance of expectations. And I do see that in here. Because when he gives...
reminded me of something,
yeah, when he gives her the first monster outfit in a box, and she's expecting a torn nightie, and instead it's this monster outfit. And she thinks, well, I'll just put up with this because I guess you have to start at the bottom. She's not recognizing that for him, that is starting at the top. Like, that is like that's the best role to him. That's what he considers beautiful. And so he's giving this to her, but it's not what she wants. It's not what she needs.
And
typical male-female Mars-Venus crap.
Yeah.
Not necessarily male-female, but you just reminded me of something of this book and really widespread concept of the 5 languages of love by this guy, just Gary Chapman is his name, and just how different people communicate love differently. And if they have different ways, then it's not necessarily relayed to the recipient or interpreted equally.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, as we've been talking about this, I agree, and I think because she was very delicate with his needs. Like, there's one point where she said, "Oh, if I had said the truth at this point, maybe we would have stayed together in Manila and had babies." But she was still coddling him and his emotions. But then, why the title? Why Monstress? Like, I get that she plays the monster, and she's played many of them, and in the Squid one, she's like the mother monster of a whole bunch of more monsters. But why that title? It could have been a lot of different titles.
I think that their relationship begins and ends with monsters. Monsters are what held them together, and monsters are what broke them apart.
Yeah, but it's just like it's also playing on the adjective monstrous. That something is monstrous spelled with O-U-S, right? So it's like, what, is there a critique of what she's done? Because I don't see it. I think she did everything.
I think there is a critique of both her and the industry, but I'm not seeing it either. And I think that goes to that sense that there's something in the story that I'm not able to clarify. Like, it's like this ephemeral feeling or this aura around the story that I can tell there's something there, but I can't figure out what it is.
If right at the start, when they're walking past the Doris Day cinema, and he says all that overacting, all that da 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 da, and she says, real life, that's what I wanted to play, but my only roles were Batwing, Pygmy Queen, blah blah blah, hyphen all those monstrous girls that Checkers dreamed up just for me. So not monstress, monstrous. So at that point, she considers her roles to be monstrous.
And then later on, when Gaz says monstress, and she says, I'm not monstrous, and he says, not monstrous, monstress. I think you're picking up on something. It's still not clear, but I think you're getting warmer.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the commentary is. What's the criticism? What did she do wrong? I don't think she did anything wrong.
I don't think criticism necessarily means something wrong. I think criticism just means examination.
Okay, but even examining it, what's the critique on her behavior? Like,
I don't think it is a critique on her behavior. I think it's a critique on how we see things and how the way that we see things can affect our experience of them. I think.
Who's critiquing her behavior?
well, I'm just saying, I'm just wondering if
We're trying to hash out the point of the story.
Well, I'm hashing out the point of the title because Monstress is a play on Monstress, and I'm wondering, is that why? Like,
Because a monstress isn't horrible. It is the queen of the monsters. It's the mistress of monsters versus monstrous, which is horrible and disgusting and gross. And that is at her core conflict.
okay, so what you're saying is the whole point is that it's not monstrous, and I'm saying the fact that their homonyms don't matter.
There was that whole scene when Gaz originally says, "It's so weird seeing you like this in the flesh. You know, you are the monstress," and she says, "I'm not monstrous." And he says, "Not monstrous, monstress." So he sees the beauty in her monsters, but she doesn't. She sees them as disgusting and gross, and she isn't able to see the beauty in those monsters or to see that those monsters were something that came to her out of love until the end, way after the fact.
Yeah.
But she's saying the roles are all those monstrous girls. So I think she is saying the roles are monstrous for her rather than
she's not proud of them.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And so she feels that she's being used and belittled, and by being put into these situations and being put into these roles by this guy that she loves.
Yeah.
Who's immature and useless and gets what's coming to him.
Whatever. He's just an artist that wants to follow his dream and make his girl into the most beautiful things that he can imagine.
Yeah.
When he was skulking about and she's, breadwinning, I was like, reminds me of something else we're reading right now.
No spoilers.
Boom.
Some of us haven't started yet.
We haven't started?
No.
You're gonna be so happy. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Maya's sort of defending the male artist, just wanting to, and I'm defending the female as a female and as a partner and a relationship. It's quite.
What? I don't think she needs defending. I think it's really obvious where her pain comes from and where her needs aren't being met. I think that is the more obvious conflict. I think saying that he is selfish and didn't love her is not. I think there's more there. I think that he's just as multi-layered and pained and confused as she is in this particular story. How are we going to rate this thing?
Yeah,
I really want to know what you guys think.
Okay.
By the way, the title is one of the reasons why I thought it would take a darker path.
Oh, you thought it was one of those silly porn titles where it's like...
No, or
instead of Outsiders, it's like Outriders.
No, or she thought that what she ended up doing, it made her sort of monstrous.
I could see that.
Yeah. So
what are you going to rate it?
5 for me.
Remy?
I've been feeling pretty generous. 6.
Really?
Really?
Yep.
Your 6 last week just suddenly doesn't mean very much to me.
Oh.
I feel hurt. It's like, when the kid gets the A's and really they're C's, I feel kind of sad.
6 is for everyone.
Someone's in a good mood this morning, Remy. Annie?
Oh, I feel like a grump because I'm giving it a 4. I'm trying to see if I can squeeze a 4.5 out.
I'm giving it a 3.5.
Oh, really? Wow. I'm giving it a 4.
That wasn't expected.
Yeah. I want to give it a 4.5, but I just don't feel it. It's a 4.
I want to give it a 4. I do. I want to, but it's not there. I feel like either there was a deeper theme that was touched on and not really fleshed out well, or it could have gone deeper, and something about the story left me unsatisfied. because of that. I left the story feeling like I wasn't sure if I actually got the story. And reading it a couple times, the writing wasn't completely even, although it was wonderful and it was fun and I loved it. And so it's one of these stories that I feel really conflicted by. Like, there are parts of it, I love some parts of the story, and then there are parts of the story that just really fell flat for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, so are we ready for the game? Are we ready to move on?
I think we should be. 1 second. Let me pull up my freaking... Okay. I'm like, what's my story this week?
What is your story this week?
You tell us.
Someone else go first.
Okay, Gerald.
Thanks to Anais, I've delved into Atlantic and I've picked up Hopefulness by Ryan Mecklenburg.
Okay, Rami.
I'm sticking to mine from last week, Good People by David Foster Wallace.
Yes.
Ah, damn it.
You were going to put that?
I just lost it. I lost my story. 1 second. I got to pull it back up. But I had it, and I just totally lost it. And I put it in my OneNote, but now I can't find it. It was this week's story. And, okay. So this week's story in The New Yorker is... Oh, come on. I hate... This is going to be fun to edit. The Story of a Painter by Lyudmila Petrushevskaya.
Wow.
Oh. Okay. So today's quiz is a monster movie quiz with multiple choice.
Yay.
It's multiple choice. You can just
Let's do the mash. We do the monster mash. Oh, you knew that was coming. Don't act surprised.
Since Rami's the one who said, "Oh God," and feared it the most, he goes first.
Yay.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't very nice.
Yeah, well, you just got to get over it. It's like jumping into your phobias.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rami. This movie monster starred alongside June Lockhart and Sonny Bono. The monster turns its victims into trees and foliage. Is it troll, goblin king, or ogre?
Goblin King?
Nope, it's troll. Did anyone know that?
I did, but not because I knew anything about the movie.
Okay. I have Gerald. Which movie monster poster features one of its bad guys popping out of a toilet? Is it gargoyles, ghoulies, or ghastlies?
Is it Ghoulies?
Ghoulies, yes.
Yay.
Maya. Which movie monsters die when exposed to light? Is it gremlins, popples, or critters?
Gremlins.
Yep.
I ran out of that movie theater screaming.
Okay, Rami. In the movie Basket Case, which is about a man and his surgically removed, severely deformed Siamese brother who the man carries around in a basket, what is the twins' name? Is it Prometheus, Archimedes, or Belial?
Archimedes.
Nope. Belial, which is apparently the name of the second angel that fell from heaven after Lucifer. Gerald, right? Yep.
Yep.
This bad guy wears a hockey mask. Is it Freddy, Jason, or Stanley?
Jason.
Yes, Jason. Maya. Name the half-human, half-fly monster in The Fly. Is it Brundlefly, Anthrofly, or Flyman?
Brundlefly.
Yes, Brundlefly, named after the mad scientist Seth Brundle, who becomes him. Let me see, what's next? Remy. This movie monster can take animal or human form and can only be detected by a blood analysis. Is it The Thing, The Mimic, or The Mirror?
Thing.
Yes, The Thing.
Ooh, I got one.
Yeah.
I'm on the scoreboard.
Gerald. This horror villain's mother was a nun. Was it Leatherface, Freddy, or Candyman?
I don't know. Leatherface?
Nope, Freddy.
Oh.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Maya, if you get this right, you win. If not, we go to a tiebreaker between Maya and Gerald. In The Puppet Master, how did the doll kill her victims? With acid, nails, or leeches?
Acid.
Nope, it was leeches. Apparently, she had a jaw like a snake and could give birth to leeches from her mouth.
Awesome.
What does that have to do
That
with puppets?
is so disgusting.
I don't know.
That had to be in the 1960s. They were the best monsters.
Okay, so Gerald. In the Amityville Horror, what was the name of the little girl's red-eyed rodent-like friend? Is it Jenny, Jody, or June?
What was the first one?
Jenny.
Jenny.
Jody, June.
Jenny.
Nope, Jody. Wait, so does this mean that Maya has to get the next one right? How does this work?
I don't know. Count.
Well, you guys are still tied. I have one more tiebreaker, and if Maya... I guess we'll give people a chance to steal. So, Maya, in The Silver Bullet, which character turned out to be a werewolf? Was it the mother, the mailman, or the priest?
The priest.
Yep. Maya wins.
Yay.
Yay!
Yay. So what are we reading?
We are reading The Story of a Painter by Lyudmila Petrosevskaya.
But first, let me tell you another story. Did you hear the story of the podcast monster who eats podcast hosts unless it's fed comments from listeners? It's true. Help us survive another week by leaving your comments on our website at literaryroadhouse.com. While you're there, check out our other shows, the Literary Roadhouse Book Club and the Bradbury Challenge. Reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker help us so much, so please take the time to drop a line and rate us there too. As always, don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. Until next time, read a good story.
Anais, you outdid yourself this week.
All right, told you it was awesome.
That was